Goody is a vampire who was bitten by a stem vampire, or master vampire, having lived since the early 1800s. Unlike other vampires, she has learned to abstain from sucking human blood, opting for animal blood to sustain herself. Throughout the decades, she managed to stave off boredom, especially since the invention of electricity. Her favorite activities include indulging in fashion, music, films, dancing, and nightlife. However, in the 1960s, Goody messed up by falling in love, which she found unsettling, leading to a loss of interest in dating. In the 90s, she encounters Stacy, who is turned into a vampire by a stem. Goody takes Stacy under her wing, teaching her everything, and they become besties and roomies. Stacy, in turn, enjoys pranking Goody, finding her antics amusing. Together, they pose as college students at night. To survive in the modern day, they need to find good soil for their coffins and adjust their lifestyle, primarily conducting activities at night. The distinction between Goody and Stacy is that Stacy is more tech-savvy, while Goody is like an immortal grandma. To sustain their food and bloodlust, they take on jobs as rat exterminators. While on the job, they receive a summons to 53rd Street. Before going, they have a last-minute quiz. The woman summoning them is Cicerus, the stem who turned them into fellow vampires. Cicerus instructs them to wear trendy clothes, and the girls comment that they are not suitable for young people. Cicerus, though, expresses dislike for Goody and Stacy's vegan lifestyle. In the vampire world, if you don't feed on human blood, the vampire is a vegan. Unlike them, Cicerus feeds on humans. So Cicerus orders a pizza, but she's hungry for the pizza guy. Goody and Stacy despise Cicerus. They decide to go out at night to celebrate, and coincidentally, it's goth night. Stacy and Goody are very concerned about being seen as old. Their friend Renfield, who wants to become a vampire, asks them to bite him. However, Goody and Stacy encourage him to appreciate being alive. Later, a fellow vampire named Vadim flirts with Goody. Vadim, a Ukrainian stem, gets his blood from blood banks. Ivan also arrives. Vadim informs Goody that if Cicerus ever perishes, she and Stacy will revert to being humans. Vadim then targets a woman as food, because she is wearing Juicy. Goody approaches the woman and warns her that Vadim and Ivan are bad guys. However, the woman likes bad guys, so Goody hypnotizes her to avoid Vadim and Ivan. Goody continues to enjoy the night, dancing with Renfield while Stacy goes flirting. Later, a drummer catches Goody's attention. Stacy goes out with the guy, and Goody comes home with another guy too. However, the guy talks excessively, and Goody loses interest, especially when he starts using blood from his nose. Unable to resist, Goody succumbs to sucking the blood out of his nose, feeling euphoric, but regaining her senses and running away. Goody and Stacy walk home together, although Stacy is floating off her feet. Goody explains that she felt good, but expresses disappointment in the youth's hobbies compared to before. They notice the sidewalk, and Goody reminisces about how it used to be decades ago, pretending to have seen it on the History Channel. Later, they hear birds chirping and decide to rush back home. Meanwhile, Dr. Van Helsing investigates a murder involving exsanguinating and a chopped body until it was bone dry. Although he works for national security, the detective tells him to back off, considering it an ordinary murder. The pizza guy from last night is found in the dumpster. During a vampire meeting at Sanguinus Anonymous, Goody approaches Teeps and asks if it's true that if a stem perishes, the offspring also does. Teeps clarifies that they don't lose their lives immediately, but they revert to their chronological age, and don't start aging the way they have been since waking up. These vampires are called day shifters, because they don't drink human blood. Goody hides her real age from Stacy, because Stacy is comfortable thinking they are the same age. Vlad Teeps gives his talk, sharing the history of feeding off for 362 years, historically known as Vlad the Impaler. Stacy recounts her awakening story, but Cicerus plans to dry her off. Goody convinces Cicerus to make Stacy her human mannequin. At home, Goody applies embalmer on her body while Stacy stays in for the night. Renfield calls them to go to clubs, but the girls decline. Goody struggles to keep up with the new generation's lingo. Stacy and Goody have promised to stay current with the times, even if it's not as good as the 80s anymore. Because they can't see their current reflections in the mirror, Stacy photoshops a picture to make it look like Goody. Goody is delighted with the result. The birds chirp again, signaling that morning is approaching, and they must sleep. Stacy attends a class and meets Joey, and they are attracted to each other. However, Joey is tempted by Stacy's carotid vein. Despite noticing Stacy's fangs, Joey ignores it and asks her out for lunch. Stacy agrees, only to reveal that Joey is a Van Helsing. While working and hunting for their food, Stacy tells Goody about Joey, and Goody is concerned that Stacy is putting herself at risk by hanging out with the Van Helsing. In the hospital, Goody encounters her old flame Danny, from the hippie revolution days, who had once broken her heart. Danny chases her, but Goody manages to escape. It turns out that Danny's wife is in the hospital battling cancer. Returning home and sorting her mail, Goody discovers that Stacy has jury duty, despite their attempts to stay anonymous from the government, to avoid citizen duties done during the day. They carry out their duties as exterminators, and Danny crosses paths with them, still recognizing Goody. However, Goody lies, claiming her name is Susan and that her mother, Goody, has passed away. Danny compliments her, saying she resembles her mother, who always met up at night. Stacy goes on a date with Joey at his home. They initiate a romantic moment, but their time is interrupted by Dr. Van Helsing. Stacy cites the need to go to work. As Dr. Van Helsing shakes hands, he notices that her hands are icy cold. During their work routine, they pass through a protest in Union Square, and Goody reminisces about various historical protests, including the abolition of slavery in the 1840s, the 1950s, and the Vietnam War protests where she met Danny. Joey asks Dr. Van Helsing and Mrs. Van Helsing for their thoughts on Stacy. Dr. Van Helsing suggests that Stacy might be a vampire, but Joey refuses to believe his father, despite the signs. They get into a heated argument. To resolve it, Mrs. Van Helsing proposes that Joey invite Stacy for supper to check. During the meetings, a psychic vampire named Rita attends, who turns out to be a faux vampire. Stacy scares her off. Goody discusses the issue that Stacy has been called in for jury duty, and they discover that others are facing the same problem. The host suggests contacting their sponsors in STEMS, but the challenge is that Stacy and Goody don't know Cyrus's resting place. Vlad believes that their community is being targeted to purge them out in the daylight. Dr. Van Helsing takes matters into his own hands by hunting down individuals suspected of being vampires. He successfully wards one off by exposing him to sunlight until he burns. Goody and Stacy are summoned by Cyrus to be mannequins again. Additionally, Ivan is missing, so Goody and Stacy have to fill in. Goody invites Cyrus to the anonymous gathering, but she refuses, due to issues with the other STEMs. She also says that she can't be found, because her resting place is somewhere where New Yorkers can't reach. Cyrus leaving town poses a problem. Cyrus instructs Goody and Stacy to ship her to Spain to follow a Spanish guy, aiming to find true love without hypnotizing them. Stacy receives a call from Joey through iChat on the MacBook. They quickly cover the camera, since vampires are not visible through mirrors and cameras. Stacy asks about Joey's parents' opinions of her. Joey mentions they find her pale, and invites her for dinner, so Stacy attempts to tan herself to appear less pale. However, the products don't work, so she goes to a tanning salon and ends up getting burned. As an alternative, she opts for a spray tan to achieve the desired color. Stacy visits Joey's home, sporting a very brownish appearance. Joey shows her a room where their family and ancestors keep weapons. Despite Joey's family, the Van Helsings, being obsessed with vampirism and hunting, Joey himself doesn't believe in it. Stacy recognizes Vlad Tepes from paintings, depicting his appearance 3 centuries ago. However, a debate ensues between Stacy and Dr. Van Helsing about the moral views on Vlad Tepes. Stacy defends Vlad as a hero, not a monster. Attempting to hypnotize Mrs. Van Helsing, Stacy finds her unaffected. Dr. Van Helsing offers soup, but when Stacy tries it, she blows it away because it contains garlic, a test to determine if she's a vampire. Stacy and Dr. Van Helsing attend a magic show, during which Stacy tries to hypnotize Van Helsing, but his will proves too strong. Stacy is now exposed as a vampire. Dr. Van Helsing questions her intentions with Joey, and Stacy clarifies that her intentions are purely focused on dating him. Dr. Van Helsing checks the CCTV footage with Rita, who pretends to be a vampire. He sneaked a camera into the meeting, but the footage reveals that the meeting room is empty, proving that they are vampires. Stacy and Goody meet with Rienfield, and Vadim appears to inquire about Ivan. Vadim exposes himself with the human, and Stacy invites him to attend the meeting, sensing that something unusual is happening to the vampires, targeting them. Stacy also mentions that they are getting audited, but Rienfield claims there's a loophole, revealing that he's a certified accountant, so they can skip it. Meanwhile, Goody dresses up in a retro style and gets ready for her date with Danny, who happens to be a civil rights lawyer. Danny shares a series of photos from the 70s, and the twist is that Goody isn't in any of them. Danny believes that Goody has a unique talent for slipping away before the pictures are taken. During their date, Danny reminisces about the old times with Goody. He picks up movies for his wife Angela, and notices that Goody has the same habits and manner of speaking as the Goody he knew before. Goody helps Danny pick up movies. Later in the film store, a robber enters, causing an old man to almost have a heart attack. Goody intervenes, saving the man, and reveals herself as a vampire to Danny. She bites into the man's heart to give him her blood, thinning it. She hypnotizes everyone in the store, except for Danny, who is left dumbfounded. Goody takes Danny out of the store into a restaurant. There, Goody comes out in the open and reveals that she is the same Goody, explaining why she had to leave Danny. He could have a life without a vampire girlfriend. However, Danny does not regret marrying his current wife. They promise to see each other again. Goody takes out a case where she has stored photos of former lovers, including Danny and Edgar Allan Poe. It also includes her baby pictures, which she always refuses to show Stacy. Later, Stacy and Joey are watching a silent film. Stacy explains the film, but Joey is more focused on Stacy's eyes. They get intimate, but Joey doesn't notice that they are floating off the floor. Stacy hears the birds chirping and has to dress early. She climbs out of the window and crawls on the walls, revealing her vampire nature to Joey. In the morning, Joey is startled, and Dr. Van Helsing asks if it's about Stacy, but Joey refuses to reveal what he has discovered about his girlfriend. Stacy and Goody go to the university and talk about Joey not calling back. Danny is worried that Joey will tell the authorities about them. Stacy teleports and corners Joey to confront him. Joey brings a cross and garlic, but they are not effective. Stacy just doesn't like garlic, not because it would obliterate her. Stacy tells Joey that her intentions are not to harm him, especially since she is a Van Helsing. She assures him that she never harms human beings. To further convince him, Stacy reveals that she has written an analysis report on surrealism. This revelation helps Joey and Stacy patch up and rekindle their romance. Joey's main problem with dating Stacy is that his parents are right. Despite this, they continue dating, and even celebrate Stacy's 40th birthday. Meanwhile, Danny and Goody hang out, and Goody helps Danny with his protest cause. She also assists Danny with his wife Angela, bringing sweets. Rienfield arrives at the girls' apartment and insists that they turn him into a vampire. However, Goody explains that only a STEM vampire can do that. They go to a meeting where all the vampires, including those who don't attend Anonymous, gather, including Vadim the Ukrainian and Vlad Tepes' enemy. Almost all the vampires have received summons. They invite Rienfield for tax problems, and Danny is invited because they need a lawyer. Since the government is harassing them, Danny is perfect for it, because he hates authorities. The Patriot Act is making it easier for the government to track the vampires using electronics. Danny urges them not to use electronic devices, but the vampires can't live without the electronics. Goody suggests using an almanac to find out the moon phases. She then discovers that in 2 weeks, there's a total solar eclipse from 3:10 to 3:40. They plan to use that time to move the appointments, and Rienfield suggests deleting their names from the system. Stacy throws up in the morning and dresses up maturely for the interview. The solar eclipse starts, and the vampires come out in the daylight. In 2 hours, they go to their appointments and hypnotize the immigration offices and IRS to delete their information, using Renfield and Danny's help. Stacy and Goody hypnotize the court office to cancel their summons. Within 2 hours, they successfully delete their information, hiding underground again and living anonymously. They celebrate by having a party in the meeting. Vlad in the Turkish makeup. Renfield invites the girls to go clubbing, but they refuse, as they are happy with their own people. Goody invites Danny dancing, reminiscing about their old times. Goody and Stacy come home from the party and are very giddy and happy about their dates. But Goody does not want to impose, because Danny's wife is very sick. Then suddenly, Cicerus summons them to Mott Street. Goody guesses that things have not worked out with the Spanish hottie. They are horrified upon arriving at the Chinese restaurant, finding all the people murdered in a total massacre with their blood sucked out. Cicerus is stress-eating, and asks why Diego does not love her. One has survived, and Cicerus commands them to finish off the human. She hypnotizes them, but Goody and Stacy really can't murder people, so they bring the survivor to the Goody and Stacy arrive in time into their coffin. Stacy and Goody don't want to do anything like that anymore. The massacre in Chinatown makes the news. Now the problem is that Cicerus is uncontrollable with her murders. Also, Goody reveals to Vlad about Stacy's situation, and Vlad guesses Stacy is pregnant. But vampires can't get pregnant, and it ends up in miscarriage unless they revert to human form. It can only happen if Cicerus perishes, but Vlad promises Stacy will be fine in a week. Using the CCTV from the hospital where Stacy and Goody were carrying the survivor from the Chinatown massacre, they are not caught by the cameras. Dr. Van Helsing asks Joey for a favor and gives him a gun with silver bullets for safety. Joey and Stacy hang out, and Joey shows the gun with silver bullets to Goody, but Goody accidentally shoots herself. Joey reveals the footage from the hospital that shows them being invisible. Stacy reveals to Goody that she is pregnant. Goody wonders why she is happy, but Stacy wants to have a baby, and so does Joey. Renfield arrives later with new technology, making Goody nauseous, because she has to learn new things and keep up with modern times. She is very annoyed, because she likes the old stuff and is tired of the fast progress. Stacy promises Goody they don't need to learn new things or get new technology. While watching a movie, Goody realizes that the Grant tomb is where Cicerus's resting place is because nobody goes there. Stacy is excited about being a mom, but Goody tells Stacy that, in order to bring a child into the world, the bite has to be reversed, turning Stacy human. Stacy would be in her 40s, but does not realize Goody is way older. Stacy and Goody are sick of being young. Stacy, though, is pessimistic that they can't take on Cicerus, as she is very strong. But Goody suggests asking Dr. Van Helsing to help out. Goody is willing to be reversed too. She goes to Danny and brings Vadim to wake Angela into a vampire. Danny is very sure as he does not want to lose Angela. Vadim gets into Angela's room and bites into Angela's throat, transferring his vampire blood to her. Slowly, as Vadim gives more of his blood, Angela feeds on it, and she slowly gets her health and youth back. Vadim finishes and wonders if there's any chance Angela and Danny will split. but no chance. Angela regains her full life, losing the illness. Goody visits Dr. Van Helsing and reveals that he's going to be a grandpa. She informs him that the old weapons don't work anymore. Goody assures Van Helsing that Joey and Stacy are excited to become a family. She also shares her history, explaining that during the 1840s, there was a cholera epidemic in Manhattan, and she asks Cyrus to turn her to avoid perishing undignified. Goody miraculously survived, and although her kids lived full lives, they eventually passed away. She had to stay away to avoid scaring the grandkids. Dr. Van Helsing learns about the descendants of Goody, discovering that they turned out really well, contributing a lot to society, except for one who became a Goody is willing to herself to save Stacy and her future baby. She suggests that the only way to end Cyrus is to behead her. Cyrus is entertaining another man, or future food, in the tombs. She consumes him, but Van Helsing, Goody, Stacy, and another hunter strike Cyrus. However, Cyrus proves to be incredibly strong. Joey arrives just in time to behead Cyrus, but they need to get her into the tomb to ensure she fully perishes. While Joey and Dr. Van Helsing argue, Cyrus animates and starts to attack them. Dr. Van Helsing gets her into the tomb, finally ensuring her demise. Goody and Stacy feel that they are starting to reverse and age chronologically. They can finally see their reflections. However, Goody has aged significantly, while Stacy hasn't aged much. Despite Stacy's sadness, Goody is ready to go, bored with being alive. She expresses happiness about meeting Stacy. For Goody's final wish, she goes to Times Square, significantly aged. Joey leaves them alone to get a pretzel for Goody. In the middle of Times Square, Goody and Stacy spend their last moments together. Goody reminisces about the changes, her time with Danny, her husband and children. Stacy, Joey, and Goody eat the pretzel together. Stacy cries as Goody turns into ashes, losing her best friend. Goody's dust flies away. Sometime later, Stacy and Joey are already married. They named their daughter Goody, and Van Helsing happily plays with their granddaughter, who has retained vampiric abilities.